Is a story of a pandemic right now. Never saw this one coming until January, but we've been warning you about it since January, and we're covering every day here on the Hugh Hewitt Show. Generalissimo decided to come to work today. That's a plus. Adam is always here. General Bennett, the phones, 1-800-520-1234. For those of you who go to bed early, the president was on Sean Hannity's Fox News Channel program last night talking about a number of things. Cut number 21, what about chloroquine?
Well, we had 10,000 units supplied and approved, and, it's a lot. And people have been taking it now for a day and a half, and we haven't heard bad news. We haven't heard too much news, period, but it's a little early. But we're going to probably know. And again, maybe it won't work, but we're going to give it a good shot. And why would we wait? Normally this process would take 2 years to get it approved, even though it's out there in terms of malaria. It's out for a different reason, but we have reason to believe, you've seen the same tests. I've seen tests and, in France and other places, Italy. So we have to see whether or not it works.
How was it, Mr. President, dealing with the Democrats on the Mitch McConnell rescue bill, cut number 22?
Well, as an example, the workers are going to get $3,000 for a family of four. They're going to get all sorts of things that they, frankly, in many cases, they wouldn't have even gotten if they had the job, if we didn't have to go through this hell. And it's a wonderful thing. The problem is, and you see it all right there, it's right in front. The problem we have is that it's very, very painful dealing with the Democrats because they ask for things that they've been trying to get for 10 years that we don't want to give, but if we don't get them or give it, we don't get the $2 trillion that gets sent out to people, the workers, and we don't get the $2 trillion that's going to really save companies. We have a lot of this money is going to save Boeing. It's going to save the airline industry. And, that means not only does it mean what it says, it also it means tremendous jobs. We can't let Boeing go. Boeing had a problem, big one, to start off with. Then on top of it, this happened. And we'll save Boeing, and we'll save the airlines, and we'll save other companies. We have companies that were virtually AAA. And all of a sudden, you're loaning them money. You could call it a bridge loan, a short loan to get over it. In all cases, we intend getting the money back, getting interest, and in many cases, some cases, issuing what they call warrants, will get pieces of the company, large pieces of the company. And that will come back and inure to the benefit of U.S. taxpayers. I mean, they're going to be great.
So
it's a great thing.
He just put it out there. They had to deal with some crazy Democrats. The most important thing that was said yesterday was said by Ambassador Dr. Birx at the White House presser that some people cut away from, which is, if you're an NPR station, you didn't carry it yesterday, you are guilty of unconstitutional viewpoint discrimination, number one. Number two, you should never get a dime. No one should ever give you a dollar again. You're all sucking at the public, what, and not to carry a briefing. And here's one of the reasons why you would carry the briefing. Dr. Birx had an important word for everyone about the doomsday stuff. Cut 19.
People, I'm sure many of you saw the recent report out of the UK about them adjusting completely their needs. This is really quite important. If you remember, that was the report that said there would be 500,000 deaths in the UK and 2.2 million deaths in the United States. They've adjusted that number in the UK to 20,000. So 500,000 to 20,000. We're looking into this in great detail to understand that adjustment. I'm going to say something that's a little bit complicated, but I'm going to try to do it in a way that we can all understand it together. In the model, either you have to have a large group of people who are asymptomatic, who've never presented for any test, in order to have the kind of numbers that were predicted. To get to 60 million people infected, or 6 million people infected, you have to have a large group of asymptomatics, because in no country to date have we seen an attack rate over 1 in 1,000. So either we're only measuring the tip of the iceberg of the symptomatic cases, and underneath it are a large group of people. So we're working very hard to get that antibody test, because that's a good way to figure out who are all these people under here and do they exist. Or we have the transmission completely wrong. So these are the things we're looking at, because the predictions of the models don't match the reality on the ground in either China, South Korea, or Italy. We are about 5 times the size of Italy. So if we were Italy and you did all those divisions, Italy should have close to 400,000 deaths. They're not close to achieving that. So these are the kinds of things we're trying to understand. Models are models. We're adapting now to the reality. There's enough data now of the real experience with the coronavirus on the ground to really make these predictions much more sound. So when people start talking about 20% of a population getting infected, it's very scary. But we don't have data that matches that based on the experience. And then finally, the situation about ventilators. We were reassured in meeting with our colleagues in New York that there are still ICU beds remaining, and there's still significant, over 1,000 or 2,000 ventilators that have not been utilized yet. Please, for the reassurance of people around the world, to wake up this morning and look at people talking about creating DNR situations, do not resuscitate situations for patients. There is no situation in the United States right now that warrants that kind of discussion. You can be thinking about it in a hospital. Certainly many hospitals talk about this on a daily basis. But to say that to the American people, to make the implication that when they need a hospital bed, it's not going to be there, or when they need that ventilator, it's not going to be there. We don't have an evidence of that right now. And it's our job collectively to assure the American people that it's our collective job to make sure that doesn't happen. Right now, you can see these cases are concentrated in highly urban areas. There are other parts of the states that have lots of ventilators, and other parts of New York State that don't have any infections right now. So we can be creative, we can meet the need by being responsive. But there's no model right now, no reality on the ground where we can see that 60 to 70% of Americans are going to get infected in the next 8 to 12 weeks. I just want to be clear about that. So we're adapting to the reality on the ground. We're looking at the models of how they can inform, but we also are learning very clearly from South Korea and from Italy and from Spain. Just a final, because I know many of you will look up my numbers. The only people who are over really 1 in 1,000 cases are people that have very small populations, like Monaco and Liechtenstein. So you will see a different number coming from when your population is really tiny. One case can put you over 1 to 1,000.
So let me translate that for the Steelers fans. Stop panicking. This is a serious situation. It could kill a lot of people. The world is not ending. All right, it's a serious situation. It could kill a lot of people. The world is not ending. We are not out of ventilators. No one's making triage decisions on life or death in the United States. Hopefully, we never will have to. We are ahead of the response curve. We are doing good. We will be doing great. We are manufacturing what we need. We don't need to order people to do it. The American marketplace was pointed in the right direction. They are responding. Drew Brees, God bless it, the New Orleans Saints quarterback gave $5 million. I really want public health bonds to be offered so everyone can contribute to building up a public health response. Everybody can write a check and buy the moral equivalent of war bonds. But whether or not we're able to do that, let's not be negative beyond the necessity of being prepared. Markets, no. This is I'm telling you, buy gold if you have some excess assets and diversify.